Hey everybody. I'm going to play a clip from Donald Trump's rally in Ohio on Saturday. It's probably the most obscene gesture that I've seen Trump make. But I know that I'm forgetting things. He's done a lot of things, so maybe you've seen worse. But this one pretty much did it for me. I had heard that he's been playing a recording at his events lately of some of the January 6th insurrectionists singing the National Anthem from jail, and that he was starting to call them hostages. And it made me a little bit ill the first time that I heard that, but I didn't actually see it for myself until this weekend. Now, as I play this clip, I have a simple question for my friends who still support Donald Trump. When is enough enough? What more do you need to see? And I'm speaking especially right now to some friends. I mean, the rest of you can listen in, but some friends who told me a long time ago that they were appalled by what happened on January 6th. They told me that they could never support Trump again after what happened at the Capitol because they saw exactly what the rest of us saw, that he summoned a violent mob to the Capitol to disrupt the counting of the electoral votes. They saw cops being beaten. They saw people chanting to hang Mike Pence. They saw people being trampled and crushed. People died, including his own supporters, because of the havoc that Donald Trump unleashed on our country that day. As you watch this, I want to ask my friends who tell me that they support Donald Trump because he's for law and order, what do you do with this? If you say that you support the police, what do you do with this? If you're a military person who fought for our country and you see a former commander-in-chief salute while insurrectionists sing the national anthem, how can you possibly still plan to vote for him? What more do you need to see? If you're somebody who just kind of likes what Trump is doing here, I just have to ask, what happened to you? So here's the clip.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the horribly and unfairly treated January 6th hostages.
Well, thank you very much. And you see the spirit from the hostages, and that's what they are, as hostages. They've been treated terribly and very unfairly, and you know that, and everybody knows that. And we're going to be working on that soon as the first day we get into office. We're going to save our country, and we're going to work with the people to treat those unbelievable patriots, and they were unbelievable patriots and are. You see the spirit just cheering, they're cheering while they're doing that, and they did that in prison, and it's a disgrace, in my opinion.
Now, when I watch that clip, I think of my father-in-law. He was a colonel in the Army Reserve, and he passed away before Trump ever ran for president. So I'm not even going to pretend to know how he would have voted in 2016 or 2020. That's not my story to tell. I don't know. But I do know how he would have reacted now, seeing the former commander-in-chief of the U.S. military saluting, while insurrectionists, again, who are calling themselves hostages, sang the national anthem. So if you still plan to vote for Donald Trump, how are you not disgusted by this? How do you justify voting for this man? Maybe you say Joe Biden is too old. Well, Trump is almost the same age. You say you want to protect babies. Maybe that's it. A lot of people tell me that, and I understand. Donald Trump is trying to make a deal about the babies, as predicted, I might add. You say the border is a problem. It is. And Trump won't let his supporters in Congress pass the bill that they negotiated to address it. Yeah, we have problems, and we shouldn't minimize those problems. They're real. They impact people's lives. But we're always going to have problems, and candidates are always going to be able to exploit those problems to put their opponents in a bad light. And that's politics. I mean, that's not always pretty, but I get it. That's how it works. But Donald Trump is in a different category. He's different from any other serious candidate for president that we've ever had. What Donald Trump is doing isn't politics. It's cultural and political arson. He's trying to burn down the ties that bind us together as Americans across our political differences. He's trying to burn down our system of justice, and he's recruiting his followers to help him. So if you care about justice, if you care about law and order, if you care about the police, if you care about the military, how can you vote for a guy who stands and salutes the very people who are being held accountable? That's all. They're just being held accountable now for attacking the things that you say you hold dear. How can you vote for a guy who calls rioters and insurrectionists hostages when we have actual hostages being held right now by Hamas and by Putin's Russia? How can you vote for a guy who promises to pardon the people that he calls hostages? And that's going to send a message, by the way, to anyone else who wants to do the same sorts of things on his behalf, that he's going to have their back. A few years ago, I did have some friends who wouldn't call what they saw on January 6th an insurrection. They said that it was just a protest that got out of control and that it turned into a riot. But they would insist that it wasn't Donald Trump's fault. But not a single one of them said anything supportive of the rioters themselves. Remember, the claim by supporters of Trump at first was that it wasn't his people who did the rioting. It was Antifa, they said. They wanted to get their own people as far away from responsibility for that day as they could. But that story didn't hold up because these were Trump supporters. And as the days and weeks went on and arrests started being made, we got to hear from many of the rioters themselves about what they did and why they did it. They did it for Trump. Hundreds of them were eventually convicted of only minor offenses like trespassing, and that was the system working like it's supposed to work. They weren't overpunished. They were dealt with fairly if they were the type of people who just got swept up into the crowd. But the ones who orchestrated the insurrection and committed violent acts were convicted of much more serious crimes, and many of them are in jail today. And it's these people that Trump calls hostages. And in the years since that day, Trump has managed to change the minds of a lot of people who saw reality so clearly on January 6th, but now they've come to believe him instead of believing their own eyes. For years now, he's been defending the people who attacked the Capitol to such an extent that many of his followers have taken on his demented version of reality. He's been so successful at rewriting history that he can brazenly stand on a stage and salute while these people that he calls hostages sing the national anthem. If you're worried about the degradation of our culture, this is the degradation of our culture. If you're worried about obscenity, this is obscene. But if you're on the fence about Donald Trump, when will you finally have seen enough?